Welcome, everyone, to Meetings and Miles. I'm Pamela, and this is my co host, Mark. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Pamela. Had an interesting day yesterday. Had to volunteer for hot dog day at my kid's school and managed to survive prepping something like close to 200 hot dogs for all these kids. And I still smell like hot dogs, but I think we're all gonna survive. And how have you been keeping?
Oh, I am well. It is starting to be more and more springtime, or maybe fall springtime in Winnipeg, but I'm here for it. And my dog has spring fever and wants to be let outside all the time. And still playing ultimate frisbee inside, but soon enough, well, I guess a few months away, we'll be outside again. So yeah, it's all good.
Oh, awesome. That is great. And we've got a guest today, someone whom you've known for several years now. I'm just met him. We recorded this earlier. So tell us a little bit about our guest.
Yes, Sean Meister. He's a fantastic guy. I did meet him a couple years ago through a work collaboration. He is the founder and executive director of Global Blue Nosers, which he will explain a little bit more of that on the podcast. He's fantastic. He's LinkedIn's unofficial Nova Scotia guy, which I just love. Very excited to share this interview.
Nice. Owning LinkedIn for Nova Scotia. Nothing wrong with that. Well, without further ado, let's get to our interview with Sean.
We are very happy to have a very special guest today, Sean Meister. Welcome.
Pamela, thanks so much. Great to chat with you again, and so excited to join the show. And you as well, Mark. Great to see you.
Thank you very much. So nice to meet you. I know you and Pamela go back a number of years. We're just meeting for the first time today, so certainly my pleasure.
I mean, we're already well
You're-
connected because I think I used up about 15 minutes of your time just talking already. So we're all friends.
We're warmed up, and Mark, you're in for a treat. But yes,
Looking
Sean.
forward to it.
Yeah, Sean, we'd just like to start with just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, I mean, first and foremost, I am an incredibly proud Nova Scotian. So that's how I always introduce myself. But I'm the founder of an organization, a not-for-profit called Global Blue Nosers. And for anyone that knows about Nova Scotia, knows that Blue Nosers, that's who we are as a people. Nova Scotians are Blue Nosers, and as an organization, we focus on building a worldwide professional community of people by birth or by choice who identify as Nova Scotian. So who they don't live here anymore, but they've been shaped by the place. So yeah, it's a not-for-profit that's brand spanking new, but I get to travel the world and meet people who love the place that defines me as an individual. So that really is where I spend a lot of my time. And then outside of that, like I said, I'm just a proud Nova Scotian. I'm a dad. I'm a hockey guy. I got a lot of things going on, but yeah, first and foremost, a super proud Blue Noser.
Awesome. What are some of the goals of your organization?
I mean, for me, the organization comes out of my own personal experience. So I always joke, for generations, Nova Scotians were the biggest export from Nova Scotia. We left by droves at various times. So I was one of those. I grew up in a very small town in rural Nova Scotia, doing forestry and farming and everything like that. And then I went off to university at Acadia University. And literally the day after my convocation, I moved away from Nova Scotia because I needed a job. And so I spent the first 10 years of my career, which are some of the most formative years, living elsewhere in the country and sort of learning who I was as a Nova Scotian. So Global Blue Nosers, as I moved back to the province, I was lucky enough in 2017 to move back. It all started to come together where I realized we had this community. I had been part of it. We all wanted to know each other, but more than anything, like, we were this group of people that, unlike anywhere else in the country, we always called Nova Scotia home no matter how long we were away. We had this strong affinity. And I started to work in economic development when I moved home, and I realized that emotional affinity to a place can actually be a pretty strong motivator to do great business stuff.
Absolutely.
And so for the first and foremost thing is to give anyone in the world who loves this place the validation that, yes, you're Nova Scotian. You might be gone, you might be somewhere else, you're a Nova Scotian, and you deserve to have that embraced and fed. You deserve to find others like you. You deserve a community. Like, we're community-minded people. Like, we like to sit around a table and share drinks and a meal. So first and foremost, it's giving people a sense of home away from home. But then long term, it's about how do you then leverage a community, a diaspora community, for the betterment of the place that we all love. So, especially from the economic perspective, how do you tap into that? So that it's sort of the dual-sided. It's that sort of nice, warm and fuzzy, want to give people a sense of home. And then secondarily is like, no, okay, now how together as a community without borders do we improve the future for our province? So that's really what it's all about.
That is absolutely brilliant. I think that's a fantastic organization, and congratulations on making it absolutely official now.
Yes, it's official, and all of the stress that I feel every minute validates that it is real, and now it's an organization. It was easy when it was grassroots, and now it's like, oh, now you have to do, bylaws, and you have to recruit a board. I was like, oh, right, these are the other side of all the fun stuff of flying around and having, like, kitchen parties.
Sorry, for the people who don't know, explain a kitchen party.
So, I mean, at the bare bones, so a kitchen party is sort of the foundation of community in the East Coast, not just Nova Scotia, pretty much all 4 Atlantic provinces. At its basics, it was, for anyone growing up out here, is if you needed something to do at night, you listened for where the music was coming from, and you sort of just like whose door was open or unlocked, and you go in. Sometimes you were invited, sometimes you weren't, and it really, what it is, it's about sort of our cultural identity, is that we build our communities and our relationships standing around a kitchen. Like, that's where people congregate in a home in the East Coast of Canada. And so it's the easiest way to then bring people together somewhere else, is to be like, let's grab a drink and just stand around and chat and throw some music on. It's just a casual way to come together. But yeah, that was the foundation of, like, when you're in a rural place like I was, there wasn't anywhere to go. The only place to go was a kitchen, because somebody had a fridge that had drinks. So that's where you went.
I heard socially acceptable breaking and entering.
I mean, if you leave your door unlocked in rural Nova Scotia, you're kind of asking for it, especially if you got the lights on and music going. That's an invitation.
Yes.
Fantastic.
And with Global Blue Nosers, and that you are global and there's lots of travel involved as well too, like, how many countries have you visited?
So I always laugh. I've been a late bloomer when it comes to being a business traveler. My early career was incredibly boring. So I never really left my desk in the early days. So it wasn't until really 2017 that I came back and took over work in economic development that I started to get on planes and discovering this love of travel and a bizarre love for business travel, which I think it puts me in a weird club of people that have something wrong with them, but I'm happy to be part of it. But yeah, so I've been to about 10 countries, and then a lot of travel within North America. So it's like early days, it was a lot of like across Canada into the US, and now it's been broadening out, and I've got a nice list of countries that I should be hitting over the next couple of years that have been on the wish list for a while, but now I actually have a reason to go.
Oh, that's
what's on your wish list?
Yeah, so I mean, the one of the big ones for me coming up should be in May, as long as everything comes together, is getting to Dubai in the UAE. I've been wanting to get there. I've been wanting to get to Hong Kong, and there's a huge community of Nova Scotians there, especially around the educational side. The not so much from a business side, but personal wish list is Vietnam. Really want to do that, because like for me, my travel has mainly been, like I said, North America, but then UK, Western Europe, into the Nordics, things like that. That's been sort of where, so it's really broadening out. Like, I really want to get into places like the UAE, into Saudi Arabia, and then getting into like Southeast Asia and things like that. So it's just like all the places that as a kid growing up in a town of like 1,000 people, I was like, those places sound super scary. Why would I ever go there? And now I just sit there and I'm like, how do I get there? Like, what is the thread that I can pull to justify getting on a plane to go there? So it just, each year I keep adding more places to that list.
I love that you have a list because I think somehow those threads come to life when you have them out there and now you've said them out loud. And those are places I know Mark is like quite familiar with.
Hmm. Love all those places. So you're going to really, really enjoy it.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, and there's for a few of those, there's several airports that I like. I want to see the Dubai airport. I'm really interested in seeing Doha. I really want to get to Singapore. So there's a few, like, as I travel more and I start to realize how much I enjoy the entire experience of travel. There's that love of airports that I'm like, I actually now sit and, like, my daughter and I will sit and watch like YouTube videos of like airport walkthroughs because she's catching the travel bug at a very young age, and so like we're going through and I'll look at her, I'm like, we gotta go there. So it's like, look, so yeah, that's the other thing is now my list is evolving. It's like the cities, but then there's also like the airports that I want to see, which is a weird thing to be turning into that guy.
I kind of relate.
This is such a safe space for me. It's just like I can say that and yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to say one of our favorite questions is do you have a favorite airport and which one?
And I listened to a few of your shows, and I think there's probably some consistency. It's funny, like there's all these airports I've been to or that I want to go to that have all these things, but like for me, it's oddly it is Halifax. It's
Okay.
so Halifax Stanfield, and I'll tell you why. So it's like it's a wonderful little airport and everything like that. But there's something about that was my gateway home. So Halifax Stanfield was what allowed me to come home when I was away. And so I didn't care what amenities were in Halifax. As long as when I got off the plane, there was a big sign that said Halifax. And so that airport is so core to my experience and is so core to the experience of my community that I'm trying to build. And then the other side is like Halifax Stanfield has a team of people that I've started to work with so much more, and they are just the loveliest people that really understand their role in driving forward the entire region. Like they take real ownership over every route they announce, every bit of cargo that goes through them. And so
Come on.
there's this like really unique East Coast thing, but it's beyond the bricks and mortar. It's that there's this amazing team that runs it, and so I think I'm super biased because like every other airport, I only get to see the surface. I get to like, what are the restaurants? What do they have? What are the amenities? But with Halifax, I know the people and they're amazing and they make it just such a wonderful spot.
100%. And I mean, we can also attest our affection for our own hometown
Yep.
airport as well, too, but probably for those additional feelings as well associated with it. And it does come down to the people. And as much as speaking for Mark and I, our background is more on the aircraft side, we still know the complex nature that comes with getting people onto planes and resources and moving them around the world. And it's incredibly complex. It's amazing that anything does happen at the end of the day. So having appreciation for that is amazing.
I mean, when I was in university, I did a summer job at the Calgary airport. So I flew, I went out and I worked ground side, just like maintenance, picking up garbage, whatever. But I remember at that time just getting this whole new appreciation for, I was just one little cog. But then like there was nothing quite like getting clearance to go airside and you're driving in like one of your vehicles and you look in the rear view mirror and I'm like, that's a 737 coming up behind me that I need. And they're on the radio, like, get off the taxiway. I'm like, we're going. But yeah, I mean, they're an entire ecosystem. And so it's like they're just a marvel that they can operate. Like everything about it says it shouldn't. But they, so that's why when I have something go wrong in an airport, I'm like, it's amazing that it's so minor. It should be so much worse. Like everything about it doesn't make sense to work as smoothly as it does.
Yes, and I remember you did a really lovely LinkedIn post about the respect for the airline and the airport workers, and that really like stuck to me. And I was so pleased that you shared those thoughts. It was incredible.
I mean, and yeah, it's one of those things that I find travel can bring out the best and the worst in us. And I find for a lot of times, for a lot of my travel, I get to see the worst in people. and it's like, for me, it's, you just have to have that sense of humanity. Like, people are, the jobs are complex jobs. Like, I don't care if you're at one of the fast food restaurants or if you're loading bags, jobs that are unique, and people just deserve to be treated with respect. Like, and so, yeah, it is one of those things. I have so much respect for anyone that works in the aviation industry, from at the airports to the airlines, because, like, for me, it's amazing that we can do this. It's like, I always say, it's like, I walk into every airport with, like, childlike amazement. I'm like, I am going to leave my house in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. I'm going to drive to Halifax. I'm going to get on a tube with wings, and I'm going to end up on the other side of the planet relatively easily, and get to experience an entirely new thing. Like, it is magical. And I'm like, the fact, if I get delayed 5 hours, I don't care. I'm flying. Like, I'm going to go in 30,000 feet into the air. It is, so I don't care how long it takes you to get me into the air. I get to go in the air.
Yes. Wow. I love that. That
is an enthusiasm I've never heard before. That is next level, Sean.
But it's so true. Yeah.
I think it is one of those things where it's like, we get so desensitized, to everything around us. Like, even the stuff we do in our own jobs and our own lives, that somebody else can look at and be like, that's amazing. It's like, oh, I guess. And I think for anyone that travels a lot, it happens to us. It can easily happen to us where it's like, all right, well, I gotta get to London next week, and then I get back, and now I gotta go over to San Francisco, and it's like, you're looking at it as this time and this inconvenience, because it's like, it's so normal. And for me, I'm just like, again, I used to sit on the farm in Nova Scotia watching the planes go over, because Nova Scotia is a huge, like, there's so many planes that go over from the eastern seaboard, going over Nova Scotia. So I would just watch these contrails going over, and every time I was like, where are they going? Like, who's on that? I'm like, this is we didn't get to. We had cows. No, we couldn't afford to get to fly in a plane. So yeah, I try to maintain that level of enthusiasm, because it's like, it goes against all logic that we should be able to do it. And yet we do. So It's like, all right, let's have a ride while we're at it. Like, this is fun.
I love that perspective. And also, I share your roots as well. And that sense that I'm like, what is happening? Where are they going? And speaking of all that, do you have a favorite trip that comes to mind? Or share some of your travels with us.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of probably my favorite trips are the ones where I get to bring my family with me. So, I think the most amazing way to experience the world is to see it through my daughter's eyes. And so one of the joys of trying to create my own organization is that I get to decide who gets to go on the plane with me. So when I was submitting memos to government to get approval to fly, I was not able to then book a ticket for my family to come with me. Now I get to, when the money is there. And so I think, last year we went to London and spent a week there while I was having, I was doing one of our meetups in London. And that was just such an amazing trip. Like, my daughter getting to cross the Atlantic for the first time, and, watching her just interact with the people on the plane and go through the airport, but then to experience a whole new place. And she was able to really root me in, like, okay, I don't need to look at the big things. It's like, what are the little things? She'd mention these little things that she'd love, like, just like the dessert she'd get at a place. And she's like, we don't have this. And I was like, that's actually a really good point. We don't have that. And so it just reminded me of, like, how the privilege of travel lets me open up to the world and see these things that I would have never. So any trip I take with my daughter is probably my favorite. And so when me and my wife and our daughter get to go somewhere, that's great. Aside from that, I did a 2-week trip in Germany in 2022. And it was a sort of an exchange. So half of us were young professionals. And I was at the very outer edge of young. They were just like, yeah, you're kind of young. They're like, you're not 40 yet, so you're young.
Young at heart, for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, they asked me about airports, and I sounded so energetic. They're like, you must be young. So, uh, but that 2 weeks, half of us were Canadian, half of the group was from Germany, and it was just really talking about an exchange. And so it was like it was kind of this thing where we like lived and traveled together for 2 weeks. But like the biggest part of that is my father had done an exchange to Germany when he was in university, and so he had lived in Germany. My whole life growing up was I used to look at my dad and be like, oh my god, like he lived in Germany, like he flew all the way over there. And so then I got to go and see all these places that he had told me about, and he was sick in the hospital at the time when I did the trip, and the whole time leading up to the trip, we just sat in the hospital talking about Germany, and he would tell me stories about living there and where he went. And then I was in Germany, and there was a storm, there was a hurricane that hit Nova Scotia. And my dad, being the amazing person he was, he'd meant to call. He had a cell phone in the hospital. He meant to call my wife to make sure that she and my daughter were okay. He accidentally called me, and I'm standing like right in the center of Berlin, and he's like, oh, Sean. I was like, yeah. He's like, I was trying to call Jennifer to see if she was okay. And I was like, no. And so I explained to him where he was, and he talked about it so much after I got home that he got to talk to me while I was in Germany. And so then it was about 2 months later that he passed away. So like that was our last like real thing that we connected on. So it's like that trip was not just a trip. You know, that was a bridge between me and my dad. And so I don't know. It's just like it's one of those things that trip will always probably be the most important to me because it was impactful to do it, but then it really showed me that ripple effect of what having that privilege to travel, what it can mean to someone's life. And now I get to share that with my daughter, you know, where she gets to. So it's like that would probably be the biggest one for me.
Such special bonding moments. Can I ask how old is your daughter?
So my daughter just turned 8. She's already better at getting through the airport than my mom. And yeah, she's a little travel nut. She's well, I mean, I don't know if you would have seen Pamela. She became a little bit of a star on LinkedIn because I posted about her 2 years ago, and she had said that she wanted to be a pilot. Air Canada flew her up to Toronto, let her fly simulators in Toronto. Like,
what?
She had this whole experience. So she's got the travel bug too. Like, she loves aviation. So yeah,
I want to fly a simulator. Can I?
She got to fly an A220 simulator. So. And I got to fly next to her. She did co-pilot. I did pilot. So we got to take off from Halifax. They put us in Halifax, and we took off. It was like just, again, one of those things of like showcasing the identity and the personality behind, you know, the logo. It's like that taught me so much about Air Canada. I was like, she was 6 years old at the time. What they did for this little 6-year-old to show her that aviation could be a career. And then same thing, Joyce Carter at Halifax Stanfield invited us up. We had to go behind the scenes and see where the bags went, which honestly, the coolest thing. Like my daughter was there, and I was just like, I was walking along acting like I was like 6 because I was like, oh my, that's what happens with the bags. So cool.
It's like it's such, to your earlier point, that is such a complicated process. And to think like how seldom your bag gets delayed or missed, I'm actually shocked.
No bag should ever get anywhere. They should just be in a huge pile. Like, there is no way, when you think about that, when you just watch it, if you watch the anthill of an airport, how does that bag get to the right plane? And like, not to mention when you do a transfer and you just make their life even worse. So it's like, yeah, I've had some baggage issues, but I'm like, the fact that it's the percentage it is, oh my God, we're doing all right.
I think about that, all the time, because it's like now I get with all the barcodes and scanning a lot easier, but go back even 20, 25 years ago when somebody was reading these little tags and tickets and making it work.
It's a good
I'm shocked.
point. Yeah.
I almost weekly. I It's pretty much every week. I almost forget to take my daughter to piano. How would I ever like? How does somebody get a bag somewhere? Like I can't even coordinate my basic life schedule.
Yeah.
So the fact that the bags can get on the plane, I don't know. I'll say kudos. I'm not going to complain about that.
I do like how you're incorporating like family travel with business travel because that feels like that's on the trend. And I know we've had like different discussions on that before. So I really love how you're embracing that.
It's I really do feel like it's sort of this post-COVID thing where it's like people want to have that hybrid life wherever they can, where it's like, can I have my family time and my professional time sort of blended together? Because like when I think about it, when I do business travel, it's like there are days that are packed, morning to night, but then there's also a lot of days where I'm like, oh, there was one or two key meetings I needed for that day, and then I got a bunch of time, and I'm like, I gotta admit, it's kind of lonely without my family. So I'm like, it's way better to have them there. And so I hear the same thing, like way more people that are trying to find ways to incorporate their family. And we've only got so much time in life, and so if you can double up like that, we already spend so much time working. Oh my God! Like if we can at least incorporate our families into it a little bit, I it's a trend that I fully support. I hope that more and more people are in a place where they can do that.
Yes. As you say, too, it depends on, the company policies and
Yep.
whatnot. And yeah, and having your own organization that definitely gives you some additional flexibility for when it works. And it's lovely when it works. And as you say, and I think Mark and I have said that too, and business travels do have those lonely moments. And it would mean so much more, if you had your people with you, just even when you have a special moment, but you're by yourself, but to have your people with you to see it, it's that much more memorable and lovely.
I
Yeah.
think about that all the time, like all the things that could be amazing moments but aren't because I'm by myself.
Yep.
How much better would this be if my wife or daughter were here with me?
It's and the thing for me is it's like it makes me experience things that I would have probably just not done and like sat and had a coffee and worked. It's like I
Yes.
go to the museum, I go see the site, because it's like when I'm traveling alone, I feel like I'm obligated to work when I'm down, and I'm like, I don't have to work every minute of every single day. Like I'm allowed to experience things, but it's almost like an excuse when it's my wife and daughter. It's like, well, I'm not going to make them stare at me while I'm clacking away on a laptop. It's like, all right, let's go to a museum or let's go to a sports game or go to a concert or like, let's experience things. So it's a nice way to kind of like force you out of what can be like a habit when you travel alone.
Oh yes, absolutely. That you're using every single minute of the day that you're on the road to get as much done as possible. And I mean sometimes by the nature, if you're going to an event and you're trying
Yep.
to, the home office misses you, it's sort of how it works out. But as you say, if you do have that day that you're able to put in like in a quotes regular work day, and then so what do you do outside of that? I think that's really great to like leverage those opportunities while you're in a destination.
Yeah, it's one of those things of like I do know that I'm like I get a little bit lucky in the way I get to travel now, but I think it is so important because it is a oddly lonely experience to travel for work, and which I always find weird because like how could I be in the middle of Berlin and feel alone? But you do, and
I feel
and
it.
yeah, so it's one of the things. It's one of the reasons why I love having this like Nova Scotia community being built. Is that like, well, if things start to get lonely, I'm like, all right, well, who's somebody I know who's got like some connection to Nova Scotia? I'll send him a LinkedIn message, and maybe they'll want to get a drink, and get me out of the hotel, and I'll be able to go and talk to somebody, and because yeah, it's like those days can feel long, even if you're in meetings back to back. Then at night you're just sitting there. It's like, ah, this is great, but it's also just it's a weird homesickness or loneliness. I don't really know how to describe the
Yeah.
feeling, but it's an odd feeling for me.
Wow. Can you spot a blue noser on the street? Can you, like, someone walking down the streets of Berlin like that? That's a blue noser.
I, I mean, for the most part, it's somebody I know. So I'm like, hey,
Oh.
but no, if they talk, you can pick it up. We're very good at. It is strange though. Like Nova Scotians, we're strangely good at blending in, and I don't know if it's our sort of self-deprecation that we have at our core of an identity as a people, but our accent gets called out when we move away. So this happened to me when I ended up in Alberta. People are like, oh, you're from the East Coast. And I was like, oh, how'd you know? They're like, your accent. I'm like, oh, do I sound that different? And they're like, yep, you do. And so I became self-conscious because like people would make little jokes about it. And so I'm just like, am I being taken less seriously because I got a bit of a twang going on here? And so this has come up with a lot of people. We are really good at suppressing our accent. We train ourselves how to drain it down and really start to mimic the community around us so we can blend in. Usually we can hear each other, but I tell you one thing, once we click and we're like, wait, you're from Lunenburg? And it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, and I'm from Antigonish. And it's like, next thing you know, I'm like, they're saying things that you're like, you weren't talking like that 5 minutes ago.
It comes out of the woodwork.
It just comes out because we've got such weird little ways to say things. Like Nova Scotians say words like, so anywhere. We would say anywheres. We throw an S on there. Anywhere, somewheres, or like everyone is buddy. And so you start to hear those little things come out. So it's funny. We can disappear into the crowd until we do spot each other, and then we just then nobody wants to be around us in the pub because it's just a little too loud.
I personally think you should continue to embrace it. I think it's lovely.
It's
Yeah.
now I'm just like, don't you dare. But I'm like, I was guilty of it. I really tried hard, and so yeah, it's everywhere. It's hard for me to go anywhere in the world without bumping into somebody with a connection to Nova Scotia. They went to school here. They grew up here. They got a grandmother from here. It's like when I was in Berlin for that trip, I checked into just this random little cheap hotel off of Alexanderplatz, and I was like, I just needed a place to stay. And I checked in. I gave my Nova Scotia license. I probably should have given my passport, but it was an old habit. I just gave my license, and she looked at it. And she's like, wait, she's like, you're from Nova Scotia? I was like, yeah. She's like, my grandmother's Nova Scotian. And she like named the town, and she's like, you wouldn't know where this is. I was like, yeah, I know where that is.
I think it's sounding like a travel hack to share a little bit more openly where you're from. Like I think when I'm just especially business travel, I'm just like on the go, I'm not even thinking about it, but just dropping these little tidbits around like, oh, I'm actually from here. Like how many degrees of separation that you can run into people that you know or have that connection from back home.
It's letting yourself be yourself. It's like I do think we all naturally sort of try to blend in, or we're very buttoned up when we travel for work. It's like, oh, we're gonna go, we're gonna have our meetings, and we're very serious people. Take us serious. And whereas for me, it's like I walk into like a Nando's and strike up a conversation with the guy behind the counter, and I end up getting like a discount because he's like he loved the chat, and I was like, there we go, just be yourself. And
I love that
because then it creates that authentic experience where then all of a sudden you feel more connected to that spot. Because it's like that's the thing for me is it's like the thing I hate is if I do a trip and then I leave the city and I'm like, I don't have the thing to say that's why I feel connected to it. And it can be the simple little story of like, the person that had a grandmother from Nova Scotia, or the person that I hit it off with at Nando's, or whatever. But it's like I hate it when I leave a city and I was like, that was just so boring. Like I just did my meetings and I went to the hotel and I have nothing to say because I didn't embrace being there. I didn't embrace being myself. I didn't find a way to find a connection with somebody who I shared nothing with, except the fact that we're just two human beings trying to survive. And so yeah, it's I always encourage people, try to just be you, even if you're gonna stand out. But
yes,
it makes that place feel closer to your soul. Like now it's part of you.
I appreciate that because I know there's like a psychology or biology that we want to blend in as much as possible, but like look at the fun you can have just being yourself.
It's true. It's we put up these artificial divides, right? Like, it's whether it's language barriers or whatever, but even just the fact that it's like, oh, they live in that place with this border and I live in this place with this border, so we're
Mm.
different. And it's like we're
Hmm.
not. Like we face completely, and it's one of the key things for traveling for business is like not seeing it as that person across the table is this totally different person with this.
Mm.
It's like no, it's like that's just another human being. They've got different life experience, different worldview possibly, but at the end of the day, we wake up, we eat, we try to have fun, we have families. It's basic stuff. So it's like
Hmm.
if we can connect at that level and get rid of all that other junk that we let get in between us, it just makes it where like business travel is just you're just experiencing the world, and hey, maybe you get some deals, which is great. um,
Some
but
business, yes.
but but
Yeah.
but you come back with more than like an MOU or a signed sales
Mm.
contract. You come back with like you know a new relationship. You come back with a new life
Mhm.
experience that is just that made that time away from family, if you had to travel away, at least feel worth it, for more than just a business
Mhm.
reason, for a personal reason, for a human reason, that it was important and valuable.
Mhm. Yes. I think it's incredible how much time has passed, and I feel what
I
you
know.
just said is brilliant. One last piece of advice or idea or your whole philosophy with business travel just to leave us with. And you've already shared so much, but yeah, any last gems?
I think for me, it's just the biggest thing I find with business travel is to really cut through everything and try to find the positivity in it, to try to find the magic in it. Like the people, even though there's so many people that get to travel for work, it's such a privilege. Like, especially if you're working for somebody else and like someone else is paying the bill for you to go and do something. Like, yeah, you got to deliver, but like that is amazing. Like, no way that Sean on the farm in Nova Scotia would have ever guessed that that's something that people could do or that I could do. And so I think it's really live in that moment when you get to travel. Try to not focus on the delayed flight. Try not to focus on the lost bag. Focus on the fact that you're doing something that there's probably millions of people in the world that would kill to experience, and just enjoy it and just have fun, and learn from it. That's if you can't do that, you're wasting your time and your money. Like you gotta embrace it.
That
Have
is
fun.
remarkable.
Yes, have fun and learn from it. That's a good soundbite for life.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Sean. This has been an absolute pleasure. We really appreciate you taking the time today.
Oh, I mean, pleasure's been all mine. Thank you so much for letting me be on the show, letting me ramble. It was yeah, just such a pleasure. And I'm just so happy that you're doing this show. Like it's such a great idea. So, thanks for doing this. Keep it coming. I love it.
Thank you so much, Sean. I am a better person for having met you now. It's been wonderful.
Thanks so much, Mark. Thank you so much,
Aw.
Pamela.
Thank you. Take care.
Wow, what a great interview. I love talking to Sean. Having never met him before, I just instantly felt a connection with him. So comfortable. Looking forward to getting your thoughts on this, but so many things come to mind. I love how he just shares such authentic experiences, especially, with his daughter while traveling, and just that level of positivity he's got. And for someone to be so positive even about flight delays, that is a whole nother level. What were some of your takeaways, Pamela?
Yes, I know. And I mean, I feel like we should record him for the next time we have a flight cancellation or delay because just the magic of travel was renewed with his enthusiasm for it and reminded me of my own. But I really enjoyed how he spoke on Halifax, Stanfield is the gateway home. And just his overall stories of connecting and having those serendipitous moments of meeting people out on the road, sharing those moments with his daughter and wife, and even that story about his dad as well too. He just took us to a whole other level, reminding us all of all those opportunities we have, just even in life in general, but especially with this and business travel, to be able to meet very interesting people in all capacities, and we're all human at the end of the day, but there's so much more to it than that.
And Pamela, it's not lost on me, but I did notice how you, without saying it, kind of worked some bleisure into the conversation. That didn't get past me all that quick. So well done.
That that was not planned. He brought that up very organically.
Although he's made me hungry, I'm looking forward to. I haven't had a Nando's in years, so if someone wants to send me some Nando's, that would be awesome. We don't have Nando's here yet. But overall, I loved his positivity. It was just downright infectious. I feel better about myself for having spoken to him. It was incredible. And we talked for about 30 more minutes after we quit recording. So I think there's an opportunity. There may be a follow up episode down the line because he's got such an interesting guy, so many wonderful things to say. So, Pamela, though, tell the good folks at home where they can find us.
Yes, I think Sean and I share the long goodbyes, but yes. Speaking of, you can find us at the Meetings and Miles LinkedIn page, or you can check out our personal accounts, Pamela Wilton and Mark Peters, Mark D. Peters 17.
And we'll have links to all those as well as Sean's LinkedIn in the show notes. Take care, everyone.
Safe travels.
Bye.